Alright, I'm Jared from Fast Forward Film, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K setup. Let's begin, we ride. So here I have my BMP-CC 4K. I'm not going to talk tons about this today because there are plenty of other videos. For instance, Gerald Undone does a fantastic review of the Blackmagic. This is a great camera. There are some drawbacks to it being a standalone camera, so I'm going to go through the gear that I've bought to turn this camera into something that's actually usable. So I'm going to walk through every piece of equipment that I've got, and I'm going to give you the pricing for each piece of equipment. But bear in mind that there are ways of making this equipment a bit cheaper, which I'll go over right at the end. So, to start with, we have the Tilta Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K/6K full cage. This comes in at about £99 on its own. It is compatible with both the 4K and the 6K. I'm not too sure about the 6K Pro, which is the most recent release of the Blackmagic camera, but it works on both the 4K and the 6K. I chose Tilta A because of its style, B because of its name, and C, I don't think it's much better in terms of durability or wearability than, say, Small Rig, but I absolutely love their style. I love how clean cut it looks and how stylish it is, so that's the reason I went for all my Tilta gear. Tilta equipment does come in at quite a bit more money than things like Small Rig, for instance, but as I say, it's just so attractive, and it comes with this really nifty little Allen key holder, which I probably took about a week to discover it was even there. Make sure you know that. So once you have your camera cage sorted, one of the most important things, because A, protection, and B, because it's modular so you can make attachments, you're going to need to start thinking about lenses. So I decided, because Canon lenses are much more universal than Micro Four Thirds, and because I wasn't too keen on the Micro Four Thirds crop, I decided to use a speed booster. There are two very common options with the Blackmagic. You could either go with the Metabones, which is quite a bit more expensive. I went with the Viltrox EF to Micro Four Thirds speed booster. After watching several reviews comparing the Metabones and the Viltrox, it seems like there wasn't enough of a difference between the two for me to warrant spending almost 3 times as much the price. So I went with the Viltrox. So the Viltrox speed booster comes in at £162. And there is one other thing that you're going to have to bear in mind when you buy this, and that's because it's a little bit cheaper, when you attach it to the Blackmagic, there's a little bit of give in it, it's got a little wiggle, and that's a bit scary when you're running and gunning it like I am. It's moving around a lot, there's a lot of shake, and you just don't want to have that. So you're going to have to buy one extra little piece of equipment, and this is the Metabones PL Type 1 support. I know it says Metabones, but it is still usable on the Viltrox. All it does is it attaches to the Tilta cage and it screws into the base of the Viltrox stand. This little piece of metal is going to come in at about £8.61, so bear that in mind when you're buying the Viltrox. So now I've got the ability to attach Canon lenses. I decided to go with the Sigma 18-35mm. It's a very common choice, but it's also fantastic. I've not had any problems with it, and it looks gorgeous. It's a fantastic lens, and I would honestly recommend it to anyone starting out using the Blackmagic. This lens currently comes in at about £659, so a bit costly, but you're not going to want to sacrifice any amount of money on the lens once you've spent this amount of money on the camera. So even though the lens's aperture itself is f1.8, when you attach it to the Blackmagic with the Viltrox speed booster on, the camera reads it as being 1.2. I'm not certain how much extra light that is allowing in, but just be aware of that if you get this lens. So next up is the Tilta side power handle. This I got as part of the Tilta tactical kit, which I'll talk a little bit more about at the end. It's pretty hard to find one of these standalone online. It's the Type 1, which allows an NPF 550 battery in. Because this is the Type 1, it doesn't have the focus feature that will allow you to use a follow focus on the lens that you have, but the follow focus version does enable you to use the Nucleus Nano follow focus. So if you're thinking about getting the follow focus one, just bear that in mind. If you buy this on its own, I'm not certain whether it will come with a power cable, but if you get it with the tactical Tilta kit, then this comes with it anyway, so you don't need to worry about that. For me personally, using this It's been helpful for sure, because as it's famously known for, the Blackmagic is horrible with its own battery life, so you will always need external batteries, but I wouldn't suggest using the tilter side handle for the NPF 550 batteries, simply because they absolutely drain the batteries as fast as anything. You're better off going with what my alternative option is, which I'll talk about in a bit. I did, however, manage to find one of these handles going online for around £85, so if you wanted to buy it separately, then you can get one for around that price. It is great to have a side handle. I don't think I'd enjoy using this camera without a side handle. It gives extra support and a little bit of extra weight, which you always want if you're going handheld. So another thing that comes with the Tilter Tactical Kit is the SSD drive holder, and it also comes with the 90-degree angle USB-C cable. You can use a CFast card, but it's very, very expensive to use that as a storage device for the Blackmagic, and you can use an SD card, but it does limit the amount of codecs you can use. So getting an SSD drive kind of just made the most sense to me. So if you're not thinking of getting this as part of the tactical kit, then the SSD drive holder is going to set you back about £30, and the 90-degree USB-C cable is going to set you back about £28. So I personally would suggest getting these with the kit. I've also got a little hack, a little life hack, that's going to help any videographers out there while transferring footage from the SSD drive onto your laptop, which we'll talk about in a different YouTube video. So as I said before, getting an SSD is a bit of an imperative for me. I decided to go for the 1 terabyte instead of the 500 gig. This just enables me to shoot for longer without having to switch out hard drives. And honestly, it's been an absolute lifesaver. Get as many of these as you can. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you can get the Samsung SSD on a good offer on Amazon. It's currently going for about £107, and that's with a deal on, but usually they're between £130 to £150 if you go online. So bear that in mind, see if you can find a deal. So here we have another item that I got in the Tilter Tactical Kit. It's the Tilter top handle, and apart from being just wonderfully designed and really attractive to look at, I haven't actually found that much use for it, other than attaching very useful pieces of equipment that I'm going to go on to talk about in a bit. If you're not going to get it as part of the tactical kit, you're going to set yourself back about £80 for this. I personally wouldn't have paid that if it wasn't for the uses that I found in attaching other modular devices. Other than that, it's great. Okay, so I've got the bulk of the camera all sorted out, but if I go out and shoot something and I want to hear someone speak, or I want to hear anything at all, I do need to think about audio. The Blackmagic does have internal mics, and they're actually pretty good. The sound quality isn't the best, so you will need to go for an external microphone. I chose to go for the Rode Video Mic Go. It's a really decent price and you get a very good quality out of it. The Rode Video Mic Go is currently going for about £53, so again, really affordable. It's great quality, it looks pretty stylish, not so sure on the red, but as a shotgun mic, it's very decent indeed. So speaking of the battery life again, I decided after several months of using the BMP-CC 4K that the NPF 550 batteries kind of weren't cutting it. Having to switch them out as often as I was made the actual practical usage of it pretty irritating. So I decided to get the Tilter NPF 970 battery plate. There was one last annoying thing that happened to me. I ordered this, I ordered the batteries, stuck it on, and I realized it didn't come with a power cable. And this is something you're going to have to bear in mind if you decide to go down this route, which I strongly advise if you want to shoot for any length of time longer than an hour without switching out. The battery plate itself comes in at £41.90. However, you do have to bear in mind that you will have to buy the power cable separately, which comes in at £23. Don't make the same mistake I did. Make sure you order the battery plate cable at the same time as the battery plate, otherwise you'll be sat there with a useless hunk of metal and a bunch of batteries that you can't power your camera with. There's not much use in having the battery plate or the battery plate cable if you don't have the batteries. These are NPF 970 batteries, and they will last you, I think, around 4 hours of continuous shooting, if not about 3. I decided to go for the Power Extra ones after doing a fair amount of research. I was absolutely determined not to bust my camera up by getting the cheapest I could. Spend a little bit extra money, and I mean a little bit, and you can get yourself some batteries that are going to last a very long time. They do take a very long time to charge. I do have a very cheap charging station, so that's probably part of the reason. These take about 12 hours or so to charge fully. But once you've got them for a whole day shoot essentially. Just switch them out. easy peasy. And you notice there's a couple of little numbers on there, but I'll talk about that in another video. You can get a pair of these for £30, and honestly, spending that little amount of money for 8 hours of recording time is more than worth it. Do it. So even though the Blackmagic 4K has probably the widest built-in monitor of any camera I've ever seen ever, it's still not quite big enough, and it's quite tricky to get your eyes bang in line, especially if you're getting your camera into some difficult situations. So I had to go with a monitor. It's just easy, it's good to use. I went for the Andy Cine 4K. It's a 5.7-inch screen, and it's just fantastic for the job I need. As much as I would have liked to have got an Atmos Ninja 5, I just didn't have the money for it. This comes in at a really pleasant £150. So it's a great start off monitor, it's a great size. The interface is not amazing, but you get used to it and you can manage it, you can find your way around it pretty easily. Like many monitors, it does take NPF batteries, so you will need to get maybe an extra pair of the NPF 970s that I mentioned earlier. Easy peasy. So, little word of advice, don't do what I did when I first got that monitor and walk around shooting with a full length HDMI cable. Having something that's about 6 foot long and having to wrap it around the top handle of the camera is not advisable. Luckily, Reese came to the rescue and he managed to get me an Atmos coiled HDMI lead. It's just fantastic, it's perfect, it's exactly what you need. It is a little bit costly at £32.65 currently. But personally, I think it's worth it. Just not having the hassle of really long leads and being able to pack this away in the case that I've got. The convenience justifies the price. Finally on this list is the NPF 550 batteries. I've got DTSE batteries. I heard they were good. I've not had the greatest luck with these. They last for the amount of time that they're meant to last for, but as I said earlier, unless you're planning on doing no longer than an hour at a time of shooting without having to change batteries out, they just get frustrating. They take pretty long to charge. Again, I don't have the most up-to-date charging station, the most expensive charging station, but they're not great. And I would honestly advise going for the power plate option instead of the side handle power, because you're just going to end up having a lot of hassle, and you don't want that. However, saying that, if you were looking to get a pair of these, they come in at about £18. So totally up to you. Just, I would heed my advice if I were you. So to finish off with, I mentioned before that instead of buying these things separately, which will accrue to quite a large amount of money, you could get the Tilta Tactical Cage Kit, and that's about £450, but it includes a lot. It actually includes a couple of things that aren't on my list. It comes with a 15mm LWS base plate for rods, but currently, as I don't have a V-mount battery or a follow focus, I'm not needing to use that base plate. Also included in the kit are two 200mm rods, which again, if I was using the follow focus or the V-mount battery, I'd be using, but because I'm not, I don't. But what does come included that I've already covered today is the full camera cage, the quick release top handle, the side power handle type 1 that I talked about, the SSD drive holder, and the 90-degree USB-C cable, which obviously makes for a really great package. So honestly, I would advise buying that instead of all of these elements separately. So that's all my gear. Now when you first look at the price point of the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, you think, that's great, what a cheap product. But when you go through all the gear that you kind of need to get this camera rolling, you're looking at around the price range of $2,800, which is still quite a competitive price, especially for the picture quality and the overall quality and user interface of the Blackmagic. So I thought I'd just let you into a little bit of what my gear consists of, all the pitfalls that I discovered while buying that gear, and the stuff that I would do differently. And I thought I'd share it with you. So hopefully you've enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you next time. Don't forget, click the like button, hit the subscribe button, give us a cheeky little comment, ask me any questions if you've got any about the Blackmagic. I'll be happy to answer them. Hopefully, I'll see you next time. Peace and loves. Adios!